right up front, this episode may run a little long today because I want to talk about sabotage and this idea of why you keep sabotaging your health goals. And I want to dig into not just some of the reasons, but how to stop. Okay. Um, and let's just start with like being really real. Have you ever felt like you're in this constant cycle of starting fresh, starting over on Monday, starting over next month? This time of year, I hear I'll start at the beginning of the year, but sometimes women who tell me that you told me that last year. I've been doing this long enough now that some of you have told me year after year I'm going to start after the holidays. And you've just find yourself, whether it's next week, next month, next season, next year, you find yourself starting over and then right back at square one over and over and over, right? And it's not that you don't want to reach your goals. It's just that somehow it always goes sideways, right? So what is really going on? First, full disclosure, let me tell you something. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, if I had the right plan, right, the right diet, I would finally stick with it. I thought, you know what, if I want it badly enough, I'll make it happen, because that's how we think about other areas of life, right? And we're told that. We've been told that. We're Gen X. We were told that all the while we grew up about many different facets of life. If you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen. It's up to you. But here's the truth. Sometimes it's not really about how much you want it or wanting it more. It's a whole like web of other stuff that's underneath the surface that makes it really hard for you and I to follow through. And that's where I want to focus today. That's what I want to uncover in this episode if you stick with me. So have you ever caught yourself saying things like if I can't stick to it completely, if I'm not all in 100%, if I can't do it perfectly, then I don't bother with it. That all or nothing mentality creeps in on so many of us. And it's one of the biggest reasons that health goals, specifically weight loss and health goals, it's one of the biggest reason that those kinds of goals get derailed so often with a huge high percentage. Think about it. That all or nothing mindset tricks you into believing that if you're not 100% on point, you're failing. If it's not perfect, then you can't do it. And we know logically that perfection is not possible, right? If I ask you, is anybody perfect? You'll say no, but you do this to yourself all the time. Every little bump in the road feels like a dead end, a complete derailment, a failure. So I'm going to give you right away. I want to give you actionable takeaway from this episode. So if you are like, I don't have time to listen to this whole thing, you've got something right now before you click off. You won't have to come back later to get a tip, right? So I want you to try this next time. Next time you're tempted by that all or nothing kind of mindset, think to yourself, what is the smallest thing I can do today and keep moving forward? What's the smallest thing I can do? So what that question in effect gets you to do is shift from this all kind of thinking to something kind of thinking, something. And that from the all to the something might just be the secret to sticking with it. All right. I know it may sound strange, but a lot of us are also afraid of what life would look like if we actually succeeded in reaching goals that we have. Now, I'm going to tell you admittedly, when I first heard about this, fear of success, I rolled my eyes and I thought that's complete bullshit. Who would be afraid of succeeding? But the reality is, the longer I do this work and the more self-improvement kind of work that I've done, and the more that I've mentored women in weight loss areas and in other areas of life in terms of success, I've come to understand that that is truly a part of the struggle. This idea of the fear around, what would life look like? What will that mean in my life if I succeed at reaching goals? And here's the real root of the issue there. It comes down to change being uncomfortable, which I know is true, right? But even if something is good, even if change is beneficial, it is uncomfortable for us. Success in different areas can mean things like standing out and getting attention that can make us uncomfortable. It can mean feeling vulnerable, which can be very uncomfortable, particularly for women like us who are leaders, who are successful. That vulnerability, and especially for women, makes us uncomfortable. And so maybe it's about breaking out of old habits, or, facing your own potential. That that can be two sides of kind of the same vulnerability coin, right? But either way, that fear can make self-sabotage feel like the safe choice. Let me put it this way. If you do succeed at losing weight, there's a pressure in that change to stay at that space that you think is going to make you happy with this new body, right? Well, that's a fear of success. If you worry about that pressure to maintain it, that in this really kind of almost odd feeling, twisted, counterintuitive way can make you avoid reaching the success. That's fear of succeeding when that happens. And so ask yourself this: what's the worst thing that could happen if I actually reach this goal? Whether it's a weight loss goal, a health goal, a career goal, whatever it is, what is the worst thing that could happen when I reach this goal, or if I actually do this? And then ask yourself, well, what's the best thing that can happen? Because sometimes visualizing that success in the worst way and in the best way, that can help us to calm that fear, to ease that fear of the unknown. Visualize what that would look like now, and your brain will start to get a little more comfortable with that vision of it. We all carry around these these stories about who we are. And I talk about the stories we tell ourselves a lot. And I talk about how deceptive they are, and I talk about how they're full of bullshit oftentimes. And so it's things like, I'm not just someone who sticks with a routine, or I'm really, too busy to make this work. But these kinds of stories, while those examples may seem simple, these kinds of stories are often just excuses that are wrapped in what we're saying are our beliefs, right? Those stories might have started with experiences even, way back, maybe in childhood, from past attempts that didn't pan out. How many times have you dieted and it didn't work? That's a perfect example of it. I hear that all the time. I've done this, I've tried it, I've tried everything over and over and over. It didn't work for me. So I'm someone who just can't stick to a diet, or, I'm too busy to make it work. Your past failures, or what you perceive as failures, things didn't pan out. Those are the stories that you're telling yourself about the future potential and opportunity for you to reach the goals that you really do deeply desire. But those stories don't have to be permanent. You are comparing apples to oranges, and you're basing your future on a past that is, there is no causation, there is no parallel that you can make that relationship true. You're just telling yourself that story. So rewrite the narrative. That's exactly what you can do. You can start catching yourself in these stories. When these thoughts come up, catch yourself and ask yourself a couple of basic questions. Is that actually true? Like, is that really true? Or is it something that I'm holding on to because it's a familiar thought? It's a comfortable thought. That little trick in itself can help you become, if nothing else, become aware of, which is the beginning of making change, is becoming aware of the thoughts that are running through your head, probably that you're not even aware of very often, but that are holding you back. Most of us also overlook really small wins because they don't seem to count. This is one that I work with clients on all the time. I see a pattern in this in women that I work with. And the truth is that we're not used to celebrating or praising our own wins. We give everybody else in our life accolades, in our personal life, in our professional life, oftentimes your managers, your supervisors, your leaders, your executives, and you oversee, if you will, a lot of different employees, and you give credit where credit is due, and you praise and you hold up and you celebrate what your team does and individual members on your team. But we're horrible about doing that for ourselves. And while logically we know that if we celebrate small victories in, for example, our team, they're going to repeat those small victories. They're going to do those things over and over, and that's going to add up in a big way, right? But we don't do it for ourselves. And the truth is, those small wins for ourselves are everything when it comes to building momentum. And so instead of waiting for the big transformation, for example, start appreciating the little shifts, the healthier lunches that you're choosing, the skipping the cake or the pie after dinner or the cookie in the evening. Start recognizing and appreciating and celebrating the walk breaks that you take when you're at the office, or the short workout that you did, because those things in actuality add up in big ways, but they go unnoticed and unrecognized, and they fall by the wayside when you don't celebrate them, when you're just waiting for that big achievement of, the 40-pound weight loss. You keep yourself from being able to get to those bigger goals because you're not celebrating the small steps along the way. So at the end of each day, one of the things that you can do, and I give our clients lots and lots of these little strategies and tricks and tips that add up in a big way when we're working on a comprehensive change. But here's one that you can use. At the end of every day, list 3 small wins. Voice note it into your phone. They may be tiny, but celebrate them because they can help you to keep making better choices on a regular basis. If it's just, hey, I drank a couple of bottles of water today. Whatever the small wins are, list them out, note them for yourself. Keep a celebration note folder on your phone. So I know I've covered a lot today, but self-sabotage isn't about not wanting it. It's not about like not wanting the goals. It's about the little things that bubble below the surface that keep pulling you back underwater. Whether it's the all or nothing mindset, it's that, low key fear of success and what that might mean, whether it's the stories that you tell yourself, each one of those negative things bubbling under the surface chips away at you. It chips away at your motivation. But here's the thing you need to keep in mind. Every small step, every tiny change really does matter. And so here's my challenge to you. I want you to pick one thing that you learned in this episode today. Maybe it was just a reminder for you, but that's fine. Pick one of them that you heard that really hit home and apply it. Maybe it's, smoke focusing on the small wins. Maybe it's questioning the stories that are going on in your head, the things that you've been telling yourself. Um, it doesn't matter how small the focus is, just take one step toward breaking that cycle because you really do deserve to see what happens when you get out of your own damn way, when you stop self sabotaging, when you stop holding yourself back. Lord knows we have enough people in life who do all of those things to hold us back. And it really is true that this approach of taking one small step could make for a really powerful change in your life when it compounds and adds up. So, let me know what it is that resonated with you. What it is that struck you kind of right here in the heart today, and let me know how you're going to implement it. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you right back here next time.